Please, Susan, just do it. It's only once. My friend needs it, and you'll make me happy if you agree. Those were the words that froze my heart like ice. I looked at my husband, John, in shock, unable to believe what he was saying. His face was cold, his eyes empty of love. He sat there in his wheelchair, the man I once adored, the man who used to call me his queen, now trying to push me into the arms of another man, his own friend. I screamed inside my head. I wanted to run, but my legs felt heavy like chains were holding me down. How did it come to this? How could the man I married, the man I once trusted with my whole soul, turn into this stranger? But let me take you back to the beginning, so you understand how love, pain, and betrayal all wrap themselves around my life like a storm. Before I tell you everything, let me introduce myself properly. My name is Susan. I am 72 years old, speaking to you right now from the quiet countryside of Kentucky, USA. I may be old, but the scars on my heart still feel fresh, as if everything happened just yesterday. Before I continue, my dear listeners, I want you to do something for me. Please subscribe, like this story, and click the notification button, because I promise you, this journey will shock you, teach you, and make you hold your breath in suspense. And before we move forward, tell me in the comments, from which part of the country are you watching this story? I truly want to know. Now let us go back. When I first met John, he was the kind of man who could make any girl's heart skip a beat. Tall, handsome, and charming. He carried himself with the kind of confidence that made you feel safe just standing next to him. He was a mechanic back then, always fixing cars in his small workshop at the edge of town. I was a young woman full of dreams, and he was a man with big plans. We met at a diner. I was sipping a milkshake when he walked in, his clothes stained with oil, his face tired but glowing with a smile. He saw me struggling with the heavy tray of plates I was carrying, because back then I worked as a waitress, and he jumped up to help me. From that moment, something clicked between us. He chased me with sweet words, flowers picked fresh from the roadside, and promises whispered under the stars. "I'll take care of you forever," he once told me, holding my hand tight. "Nothing will ever come between us." And oh, how I believed him. We got married in a small church. It wasn't grand, but it was full of love. My white dress was borrowed, my bouquet handmade, and our guests were few. But I thought I had the whole world in my hands because I had him. For years we were happy. We laughed together, worked hard together, and even when things were tough, we held on. Our love was our shield. John's workshop grew into a bigger garage, and I left waitressing to help him with the books. Life wasn't perfect, but it was ours. But happiness, my dear listeners, is like a fragile glass. It takes only one fall to break it into pieces. The fall came on a rainy night. John was driving back from the garage when his car skidded on the wet road. The accident left him broken, his legs paralyzed. The man who once ran around fixing engines could no longer walk. He became tied to a wheelchair. At first, I stood by him. I told myself, for better or worse, in sickness and in health, I will not leave him. But the John the first knew began to disappear. His smile faded, his laughter vanished, and his heart grew colder by the day. He pushed me away with sharp words, with silence, with anger that cut deeper than knives. Still, I tried to love him. Until the night came when he crossed the line, when he looked me straight in the eye and said, "Susan, sleep with my friend. Do it for me." That was the moment my world shattered. I will never forget how his friend sat there, smirking, waiting, as if I were some kind of object to be passed around. My hands shook, my voice broke, and I cried, "John, how could you even think of this?" But John only looked at me with that cold stare, as if he were no longer the man I married. And that, my dear listeners, is where the real story begins. Because what happened next will make you question love, trust, and even the meaning of marriage itself. I stood there frozen, staring at John as though he were a complete stranger. His words replayed in my head like a nightmare I couldn't escape. "Susan, sleep with my friend. Do it for me." I wanted to scream, to run, but my legs would not move. His friend, Martin, leaned back on the sofa with a sly grin, as if he was already sure of what would happen. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. I looked at my husband, hoping that maybe he would suddenly laugh and say it was all a bad joke. But no, his eyes were sharp and lifeless, his face set like stone. He meant every single word. John, I whispered, my voice breaking. You can't be serious. I am serious, he said coldly. You're my wife, and if you love me, you'll do what I ask. Love. He dared to use that word. Tears filled my eyes. That wasn't love. That was cruelty. I shook my head, trembling, and whispered, I will never do that. Martin chuckled under his breath, stood up and walked toward me. His heavy footsteps echoed in the silence of the room. I stepped back until my back touched the wall. I could smell the alcohol on his breath, and the way his eyes scanned me made my stomach turn. That moment was one of the darkest of my life. I thought I had seen suffering before, but that was the first time I felt truly trapped. But before I tell you how that night ended, let me pause, my dear listeners. Because I want you to understand how I got to this point, how love slowly turned into something unrecognizable. You need to know the road that led me into that storm. So let's step back in time again. After John's accident, our life changed in ways I couldn't imagine. At first, I was determined to stay strong for both of us. I bathed him, fed him, encouraged him, and even pushed his wheelchair when he wanted to go outside. I kept telling him, we'll get through this together. But the man who used to sing to me while fixing cars now stared blankly at walls. He stopped talking to me except when he was angry. Every little thing I did seemed to annoy him. If the food was too salty, he threw the plate. If the house wasn't spotless, he cursed. I told myself it was just the pain, the frustration of losing his legs. And maybe it was. But slowly, his words became knives that cut me deeper each day. One night, as I helped him into bed, he pushed my hands away and shouted, Stop pretending to care, Susan. You only pity me. You don't love me anymore. His words broke me. I cried quietly that night, lying beside him, staring at the ceiling, wondering where the man I married had gone. But then there were still small glimpses of the old John. Some mornings he would hold my hand and whisper, I'm sorry. I don't know how to live like this. Those moments gave me hope. They made me believe I could still save our marriage. Until Martin came into the picture. Martin was John's old friend from the garage days. He was always around after the accident, bringing beer, sitting with John, making him laugh in ways I couldn't anymore. At first, I thought he was helping, maybe giving John the comfort I couldn't. But little did I know, Martin had his own twisted desires. I noticed the way he looked at me sometimes. His eyes lingering too long, his smile too suggestive. It made me uncomfortable, but I stayed quiet. I didn't want to create more trouble for John. But that silence was my mistake. Because silence, my dear listeners, sometimes gives people the courage to cross lines they never should. And then came the night. The night John revealed just how cold his heart had become. Back to that living room. Martin stood only inches away. His eyes locked on mine, his grin wide. I pressed my back harder against the wall, whispering, Stay away from me. John's voice cut through the air like a blade. Do it, Susan. Prove you love me. My tears fell freely now. I looked at him and shouted, This is not love, John. This is betrayal. And just when I thought things couldn't get worse, Martin reached out his hand toward me. Martin's hand reached out toward me, his fingers curling like a snake ready to strike. My whole body shook. I pressed myself harder against the wall, praying for some kind of miracle, something that would stop him. Don't touch me. I cried out, my voice breaking. But Martin only smirked, his breath hot and heavy as he stepped closer. I could smell the alcohol mixed with sweat, and it made my stomach churn. His hand brushed against my arm, and I slapped it away with all the strength I had left in me. John didn't move. He just sat there in his wheelchair, his face cold and expressionless, like a stranger watching someone else's tragedy. My husband, the man who once swore to protect me, was now offering me up like a lamb to slaughter. John, how could you let this happen? I screamed, tears burning my eyes. How could you do this to me? But he only said in a flat voice, Do it, Susan. It's the only way you'll prove you're loyal. My knees almost gave out beneath me. Loyal? Was this what loyalty had become in his mind? Sacrificing my dignity, my body, to satisfy his bitterness and his friend's lust? I pushed Martin away with all my strength and ran toward the kitchen. He stumbled but laughed like a madman. Don't run, sweetheart, Martin called out. It'll only make me chase you harder. I grabbed the first thing my hands could find, a frying pan, and held it up high, my whole body shaking. "Stay back, Martin. I swear I'll hit you." For a moment, silence filled the house. The only sound was my heavy breathing and the ticking of the old clock on the wall. Then John's voice came again, calm but cruel. "Sit down, Martin. She'll come around." But Martin wasn't ready to sit down. He licked his lips, took a step toward me, and sneered, "She'll come around tonight." That was when rage burst through me. I slammed the frying pan down on the counter so hard the noise echoed through the room. "Get out!" I shouted, my voice trembling but fierce. "Both of you. Get out of my house." Martin froze for a second, shocked by my outburst. He glanced at John, waiting for him to say something. But John just sat there, his jaw tight, his eyes filled with something dark I'd never seen before. Finally, Martin grabbed his jacket and muttered, "Fine. But you can't run forever, Susan. Your husband knows where your loyalty lies." And with that he walked out the door, slamming it behind him. I stood there, clutching the frying pan, my body shaking so badly I thought I would collapse. But then silence. Just me and John. I turned to him slowly, my tears still flowing, my heart shattered beyond repair. "How could you, John? After everything we've been through, after all the love we shared, how could you betray me like this?" He stared at me for a long time before finally speaking. His voice was quiet but sharp, every word cutting me deeper. "Because you don't understand what it's like to be me, to lose everything, to sit here useless while you pity me. If you really loved me, Susan, you'd do anything I asked." I shook my head, unable to believe what I was hearing. This wasn't my John. This wasn't the man I married. That night, I locked myself in the bedroom and cried until my pillow was soaked. I cried for the love I lost, for the woman I used to be, and for the nightmare my marriage had become. But, my dear listeners, what happened the next morning was something I never saw coming. Because sometimes when you think the storm has passed, it only grows darker. The next morning, I woke up to find John missing from his wheelchair. The morning light poured weakly through the curtains, but it didn't bring me peace. My eyes were swollen from crying all night. My body was weak, but I forced myself up to check on John. As soon as I stepped into the living room, my heart skipped a beat. The wheelchair was empty. I froze. My hands began to tremble. "John!" I called out, my voice cracking. No answer. I rushed through the kitchen, the hallway, even checked the porch, but he was nowhere to be found. My mind spun wildly. How could he have moved? Where could he go? His legs hadn't worked since the accident. Panic filled me as I searched the house. Then I noticed something, his crutches were missing. My stomach twisted. Somehow, he had dragged himself out of that chair and gone somewhere. I ran to the door, opened it, and looked outside. And there he was. John was crawling in the yard, his hands muddy, his body trembling, dragging himself toward the street. His crutches lay abandoned a few feet behind him. I gasped and rushed to him. "John, what are you doing?" I cried, kneeling beside him. He looked up at me, his eyes wild with anger and pain. "Leave me alone, Susan. I don't need your pity." Tears welled up again. "You'll hurt yourself. Please let me help you back inside." But he shoved me away with surprising strength. "No. I'd rather die in the dirt than live trapped in that chair while you look at me with those eyes." My heart shattered. I wasn't looking at him with pity. I was looking at him with love. But he couldn't see it anymore. The accident had stolen not just his legs but also his pride, his warmth, his humanity. As neighbors began to peek from their windows, I felt shame wash over me. I wanted to protect him, to protect us, but there was no hiding what was happening. My once strong, proud husband was crawling on the ground, screaming at me to leave him. At last, with the help of two neighbors, I managed to lift him back into his wheelchair. But he didn't thank me. He glared at me, his voice dripping with venom. "One day, Susan, one day, you'll regret not listening to me." Those words burned deep inside me. I didn't fully understand what he meant, but I knew it was a threat. A warning. That night, I sat alone in the kitchen, the sound of the clock ticking louder than usual. I thought of leaving, of running away from all of it. But then I remembered my vows, for better or worse, in sickness and in health. I whispered to myself, I can't leave him, not yet. But little did I know, Staying was the very choice that would drag me into darker days ahead. Because later that same night, as the wind howled outside and the house creaked in the silence, I woke to a sound that made my blood run cold. Footsteps. Heavy, dragging footsteps, moving slowly down the hallway toward my room. The sound of those footsteps in the hallway still rings in my memory, even after all these years. Slow. Heavy. Dragging. I lay frozen in bed, my heart pounding so loudly I feared it might burst from my chest. My mind screamed at me to get up, to lock the door, to run. But my body refused to move. The footsteps drew closer, closer, until they stopped right outside my bedroom door. The handle turned. The door creaked open. And there he was. John. But this wasn't the husband I once knew. His face was twisted, pale in the moonlight. His hands clutched the crutches tightly, and his eyes, oh those eyes, burned with something dark, something I couldn't recognize anymore. John, I whispered, my voice trembling. Why are you up? You're supposed to be resting. He stepped inside, dragging one crutch, the other tapping against the floor. His breathing was heavy, like a beast cornering its prey. I couldn't sleep, he muttered, his tone low and chilling. I kept thinking about last night. About how you embarrassed me in front of Martin. My blood ran cold. John, please, I said softly, sitting up, clutching the blanket to my chest. I only wanted to protect myself. What you asked of me, it wasn't right. You know that. His lips curled into something between a sneer and a smile. You think you're better than me now, Susan? You think just because I'm stuck in this broken body, you get to decide what's right and wrong? I shook my head, tears already welling up. No, John, I've never thought that. I love you. I only want what's best for us. He slammed one crutch against the wall so hard it echoed through the house. I jumped, my body trembling. If you loved me, he hissed, you'd have obeyed me. You would have done what I asked without question. That word again. Obeyed. As if I were nothing more than his servant. Then slowly he began to move closer to my bed. Each step heavy and uneven. The wooden floor creaked beneath him. My heart raced faster with every step he took. When he reached the edge of the bed, he leaned forward, his face only inches from mine. I could feel his breath on my skin, hot and ragged. You think you can say no to me, Susan? He whispered. You'll see. You'll regret this. Maybe not tonight, but soon. I felt a chill crawl through my body. He straightened himself, turned and limped back toward the door. But before leaving he stopped, looked over his shoulder, and gave me one last glance. One that chilled me to the bone. Then he was gone. The door creaked shut behind him. I sat there in silence, hugging the blanket, tears rolling down my face. That night, I realized something terrifying. My husband was no longer just bitter. He was dangerous. And I didn't know how much longer I could survive under the same roof with him. But my dear listeners, that wasn't the worst of it. Because the very next day, something happened that pushed me to the edge. Something that forced me to question whether staying by his side would cost me my very life. The morning sun crept through the curtains, but instead of bringing peace, it brought dread. I hadn't slept at all after John's chilling words the night before. Every creak of the house had made me jump. Every whisper of the wind had felt like a warning. When I finally gathered the courage to step out of the bedroom, my stomach turned. The living room was a mess. Beer bottles littered the floor. The coffee table was overturned. And on the wall, written in black marker, were the words, "Obey or suffer." My heart nearly stopped. I stumbled back, covering my mouth with trembling hands. Tears filled my eyes. This wasn't just anger anymore. This was a threat. A warning carved into the very walls of the home we built together. I turned toward the kitchen, and that's when I saw him. John sat there in his wheelchair, staring at me with empty eyes. His hands rested calmly on his lap, but the marker was still uncapped, sitting on the counter beside him. "Did you do this?" I asked, my voice breaking. He didn't answer. He only tilted his head slightly, like a man studying his prey. "John, this isn't you," I whispered, stepping closer. "Please talk to me. We can get through this together." His lips curled into a thin smile. "Together? There is no together unless you do as I say. You will obey me, Susan. Or else." I felt the air leave my lungs. Or else what? I asked, though I was terrified to hear the answer. He leaned forward, his eyes burning with a cold fire. Or else you'll see just how far I can go. My knees weakened. I wanted to scream, but my throat closed up. The man I had once loved was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. Suddenly the doorbell rang. The sound cut through the tension like a knife. I flinched, my heart racing. John's face darkened. "Don't answer that," he snapped. But I couldn't ignore it. My instincts screamed at me that whoever was at the door might be my only chance, my only lifeline. I rushed to the door and opened it, and there, standing on the porch, was Martin. He grinned when he saw me, his eyes full of mischief. "Morning, Susan. Did you think about what we talked about?" My blood froze. My eyes darted back to John, who now had a wicked smirk on his face. "Let him in," John said, his voice low and commanding. My hand shook on the doorknob. My mind screamed no, but I knew the storm I was about to face had only just begun. The moment Martin stepped across the threshold, the air in the house grew heavy, like a storm about to break. His grin widened as his eyes roamed the room, finally settling on me. I stepped back instinctively, my heart pounding against my ribs. "Don't be shy, Susan," he said with a chuckle, brushing past me as though he owned the place. "We're all friends here." But there was nothing friendly about the way he looked at me. I glanced at John. He sat in his wheelchair, calm, almost pleased, like a man watching a plan unfold. His eyes flicked between me and Martin, and then he spoke with chilling calmness. "Sit down, Susan. You need to listen." My throat tightened. "No, John. Not again. I told you. I will not do this." His smile disappeared. His jaw tightened. "You think you have a choice? Martin is my friend. He's been here for me when you've done nothing but pity me. You owe me this." "I owe you nothing," I snapped, tears stinging my eyes. "I've stood by you through everything, through the accident, through your anger, through your pain. And this is how you repay me?" Martin laughed softly, leaning against the wall, his arms crossed. "She's got fire, John. I like that." The way he said it made bile rise in my throat. John's eyes darkened. "Susan, don't make me your enemy. Do this for me, and we'll have peace. Refuse and you'll regret it." I shook my head, clutching my hands together, trying to stop them from shaking. I'd rather die than betray myself like that. For the first time, John's expression cracked. His face twisted with rage. He slammed his fist against the armrest of his wheelchair so hard that the sound made me flinch. "You ungrateful woman," he shouted. "I should have left you years ago." The room fell into tense silence. My heart was breaking, but my fear was greater. Then Martin pushed himself off the wall and stepped closer to me. His grin was gone now, replaced by something darker. Maybe she just needs a little convincing. I backed away quickly, but my heel hit the edge of the coffee table, and I stumbled. Martin's hand shot out, gripping my wrist with crushing force. I cried out, struggling to pull away. "Let her go." I screamed, but John didn't move. He just watched. Martin's face was inches from mine now, his breath reeking of alcohol. "Stop fighting, Susan. It'll be easier that way." Panic surged through me like fire. I twisted, kicked, and shoved with all the strength I had. My free hand grabbed one of the beer bottles off the floor, and without thinking, I smashed it against the edge of the table. The glass shattered, leaving jagged edges in my hand. "Touch me again and I swear I'll use this," I screamed, my voice shaking but fierce. Martin froze, his eyes narrowing. For a moment no one moved. Then John began to clap slowly, mockingly. Well, well. The quiet little wife finally shows her claws. Tears streamed down my face as I held the broken bottle tightly, my hands trembling. I didn't know if I had the courage to use it, but I knew I couldn't let them see my fear. Martin let go of my wrist, raising his hands in mock surrender. "Fine. You've got spirit. But trust me, Susan. You can't keep this up forever." He backed away, grabbing his jacket, and with a final smirk, he walked out the door. The silence that followed was suffocating. I turned to John, my chest heaving, my eyes full of hurt. "How could you let that happen?" I whispered. He stared at me coldly. "Because you forced my hand. You made me do this." You will learn, Susan. One way or another you will learn. My whole body shook. That was the moment I realized my life was no longer safe, not with John, and not with the kind of men he was bringing into our home. But my dear listeners, I had no idea that the very next night, things would escalate in a way I never imagined. Because when I thought I had faced the worst, the real danger was only just beginning. That night, I could barely breathe. My wrist throbbed from where Martin had grabbed me, and my mind wouldn't stop replaying John's cold stare. I locked myself in the bedroom, gripping the broken bottle I had hidden under my pillow, too scared to sleep. Every creak of the house sounded like a warning. Every gust of wind rattling the windows made my heart jump. I whispered to myself, just make it till morning, Susan. Just make it till morning. But morning didn't bring peace. When I stepped out of my room, the house was too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes your skin crawl. The living room was cleaned up. No bottles, no overturned table, no marker on the wall. Almost as if nothing had happened. And then I saw it. On the kitchen counter, sitting on a folded napkin, was a knife. Not just any knife, but the sharp carving knife John always used on Thanksgiving. Beside it was a note in his handwriting. If you won't be my wife in love, then you will be my wife in fear. My whole body went numb. I clutched the counter to keep myself from falling. Fear wrapped around me like chains. John! I called out weakly, my voice shaking. From the other room his voice answered, calm but chilling. I see you found my message. I turned slowly, and there he was, sitting in his wheelchair at the edge of the hallway. His hands rested on the wheels, but his eyes pierced through me like daggers. Why are you doing this to me? I whispered, tears already flowing. I've loved you, John. I've never left your side. Why are you treating me like your enemy? He tilted his head, a bitter smile creeping onto his lips. Because love is useless to me now. Fear, that's what keeps people loyal. And I need to know you'll never betray me. My knees buckled. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Betray you? I've given you everything. What more do you want from me? His voice grew sharper. Obedience. Absolute obedience. If you can't give me love the way I want it, then you'll give me respect through fear. He rolled himself forward, the wheels creaking on the wooden floor, stopping just inches from me. His hand reached for the knife on the counter. My heart nearly stopped. In that moment I thought my life was over. But then bang! The front door flew open so hard it slammed against the wall. Both of us turned in shock. And standing there was Martin. His grin was gone this time. His face was serious, his eyes locked on John, then on me. Well, he said slowly, his voice low and dangerous. Looks like I came back at the right time. The sound of the door slamming still echoes in my memory. My breath caught in my throat as Martin stepped inside, his heavy boots thudding against the floor. He didn't look drunk this time. He didn't look playful. He looked like a man on a mission. John's hand hovered over the knife, his face hardening. What are you doing here, Martin? He asked, his voice sharp. Martin's eyes flicked to the knife, then to me. I came because I don't like being denied. My heart dropped. I gripped the edge of the counter, praying silently for strength. Martin walked closer, his expression darker than ever. Last night, Susan embarrassed me. Today, you sit here threatening her with a knife. You think that makes you the stronger man, John? No. It makes you pathetic. John's jaw tightened. Careful what you say. But Martin only laughed, an ugly, hollow laugh. You think you can control her? You can't even control yourself. That's why I'm here. If Susan won't obey you, maybe she'll obey me. His words sent ice through my veins. I shook my head desperately. No. No, Martin, I'll never obey you. Get out. But he ignored me. He stepped closer, his hand reaching out as though to claim me right there in front of my husband. That's when John slammed his fist down on the armrest of his wheelchair, his voice roaring through the room. She's mine, Martin. Mine. The two men locked eyes, their hatred thick in the air. For a moment, I thought they might tear each other apart. But then Martin smirked. You can't have what you can't protect, John. And right now, you can't protect her from me. He reached for my arm. I jerked back, my heart hammering, my hand still gripping the counter behind me. Without thinking, I grabbed the knife before John could reach it. I held it out in front of me, the blade trembling in my hands. Stay away from me, both of you. I screamed, my voice shaking but strong. Martin froze, his eyes narrowing. John's face twisted with rage. You see? Martin sneered at John. She's not afraid of you. She's afraid of me. You've already lost her. John's face went red, his hands gripping the wheels of his chair so tightly his knuckles turned white. For the first time I saw something new in his eyes. Not just anger, not just bitterness, but desperation. And then to my horror, John shouted, "Then take her, Martin. If she won't obey me, let her learn what happens when she defies a man." My scream caught in my throat. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My husband, the man I vowed to love, was offering me up again, this time in pure rage, like I was nothing but a piece of property. Martin grinned wickedly, stepping closer. I tightened my grip on the knife, my whole body shaking. I was cornered, alone, desperate. And in that terrifying moment I knew I had only two choices: fight or be destroyed. The knife shook in my hands, but I held it tightly, the blade glinting under the dim kitchen light. My breath came in sharp gasps, my back pressed against the counter as Martin stepped closer. John sat in his wheelchair, watching with an expression that sent a chill down my spine. A mixture of anger, pride, and cruelty. "Put that knife down, Susan," Martin said with a low growl, as though he were talking to a frightened child. "You don't want to hurt yourself." "I'll hurt you if you come closer," I shouted, my voice breaking. Martin chuckled, shaking his head. "You don't have it in you. You're too soft. That's why John wants me to teach you a lesson." I glanced at John, hoping he would deny it, hoping he would defend me. But he just stared at me coldly and said, "Maybe he's right. Maybe fear is the only way you'll learn." My knees nearly buckled. My own husband, the man I sacrificed everything for, had thrown me to the wolves. Martin lunged forward suddenly, trying to grab my wrist. I screamed and slashed the knife through the air. The blade cut across his arm, not deep, but enough to make him stagger back. "You witch!" he yelled, clutching the bleeding cut. His face twisted with fury. John leaned forward, his voice thunderous. "Don't just stand there, Martin. Show her she can't defy us." The room spun. My ears rang. It felt like the walls were closing in on me. I backed toward the corner, holding the knife tighter, tears streaming down my face. "Stay away. Please stay away." But Martin was no longer smiling. He was enraged, and his heavy steps echoed like drumbeats as he advanced again. In that instant I made a decision. If they wanted to see how far I could go, then I would show them. I raised the knife higher, my hands no longer trembling. My voice grew steadier, filled with a courage I didn't know I had. "Come closer, Martin, and I swear to you, I'll drive this knife straight into your chest." The room froze. Martin stopped dead in his tracks, his eyes narrowing as he studied me. For the first time he seemed unsure. But John's face darkened with rage. "You wouldn't dare," he spat. I looked him straight in the eyes and whispered, "Try me." The tension was unbearable. My heart pounded so loudly I thought they could hear it. Seconds felt like hours. Then suddenly, bang! The front door slammed open again. This time it wasn't Martin. It wasn't John. It was the police. Two officers stormed in, their guns drawn, shouting, "Drop the weapon! Now!" And in that frozen, breathless moment, the knife slipped from my hand and clattered to the floor. The police officers filled the room, their voices firm and commanding. "Hands where we can see them," one shouted, his eyes darting between me, Martin, and John. I froze, my chest heaving, my hands trembling as I lifted them slowly into the air. Martin scowled but obeyed, lifting his bloody arm. John slammed his palms on the armrest of his wheelchair, furious. "What's the meaning of this?" he barked. "This is my house." The taller officer, a man with sharp eyes, stepped closer. "We got a call about a possible assault happening here. Someone said a woman was in danger." My head whipped around in shock. Someone had called? Who? My neighbors were kind, but they usually kept to themselves. For a moment, hope flickered in my chest. The shorter officer picked up the knife I had dropped and placed it into a clear evidence bag. His eyes lingered on me, softening just a little. "Ma'am, are you hurt?" I shook my head, but my voice quivered. "No, but they were trying to force me." I stopped, my throat tightening, my eyes darting toward John and Martin. Martin sneered. Don't listen to her. She's hysterical. She attacked me. You see this? He waved his bleeding arm, smearing more blood on his shirt. That crazy woman cut me. The officer frowned, looking back at me. Is that true? Tears welled in my eyes. I wanted to scream to explain everything, but the weight of John's glare pinned me down. His cold eyes warned me not to speak. Before I could answer, the taller officer's radio crackled. A voice came through, confirming something that made his eyes widen slightly. Copy that. The call came from inside the house. Anonymous female voice. My mouth fell open. Inside the house? But I was the only woman here. My heart skipped a beat. There was only one other person who had access to this house besides me. Emily, our neighbor's teenage daughter, who sometimes helped me with chores when John wasn't home. She had been over earlier that afternoon, quietly folding laundry in the back room. Had she seen or heard something and secretly called? The taller officer gave me a searching look, as if piecing it together. Ma'am, he said carefully, would you like to step outside with us for a moment? Before I could move, John slammed his fist down on the armrest again. No. She stays here. She's my wife, and you've got no right to interfere in my marriage. The officers exchanged a look. Martin smirked, as though he thought he had already won. But I felt my chest tighten. This was my chance. If I walked out with the police, maybe, just maybe, I could finally escape. Yet even as the thought formed, John's voice thundered again, louder, more desperate. If she leaves this house, you'll never see her again. Because I'll make sure of it. The words cut through me like a blade. My stomach dropped, my hands shaking as I stood frozen in place. The officers stared at John, their expressions hardening. And that was when one of them reached for his cuffs. The sound of the handcuffs clicking open echoed like thunder in the room. The taller officer stepped toward John, his jaw tight. Sir, I'm going to need you to calm down. Threatening someone's life in front of police is a crime. John's face turned red with fury. He slammed his fists against the armrests of his wheelchair. You fools. You don't know what you're doing. She's my wife. She belongs to me. The shorter officer's eyes narrowed. No, sir. She belongs to herself. For the first time since the police arrived, I felt a flicker of hope. My knees nearly gave way as I tried to steady my breathing. But Martin wasn't about to stay quiet. Look, officers, Martin said, his voice calm but slick like oil. This is just a misunderstanding. John's been through a lot since his accident, and Susan here, well, she gets emotional. She grabbed the knife, attacked me, and now you've barged in thinking she's some kind of victim. He held up his bleeding arm like a trophy. I'm the one who was attacked. The taller officer studied him closely, then turned to me. Ma'am, is that true? All eyes were on me. My chest tightened. This was my moment. The moment to tell the truth, no matter the cost. But John's stare burned into me like fire. His lips curled in a silent threat. I swallowed hard, then whispered, No, that's not true. The taller officer leaned forward. Can you explain what happened in your own words? My voice trembled, but I forced it out. They tried to force me. John told Martin to. I couldn't even finish the sentence. My face burned with shame. Tears spilled down my cheeks. The room went dead silent. The shorter officer's jaw tightened. His hand rested on his holster, his whole body tense. Is that correct, sir? He asked John, his voice dangerously low. John laughed, a bitter, heartless sound. And you believe her? She's hysterical. She's always been dramatic. Look at her, crying, shaking, spinning lies. She doesn't even know what she's saying. But the officers didn't look convinced. Martin stepped forward, waving his bloody arm again. Look at me. She's violent. She could have killed me. Arrest her before she does it again. The taller officer raised his hand, silencing him. His eyes never left mine. Ma'am, he said softly, you're safe now. No one is going to hurt you while we're here. But we need you to tell us exactly what happened. I opened my mouth, but before I could answer, bam! The lights flickered, and a loud crash echoed from the back of the house. Everyone jumped, turning toward the sound. What the hell was that? Martin muttered, his eyes narrowing. The officers drew their guns immediately. "Stay where you are," one barked. My heart raced. The sound came from the laundry room, the very room Emily had been in earlier. Could it be that she was still here? The taller officer signaled his partner, and they moved toward the hallway, guns raised. The air grew thick with tension. I clutched my chest, whispering a prayer under my breath. If Emily was there, she might be the only one who could prove I was telling the truth. But as the footsteps approached the laundry room, the silence was shattered by a scream, a high-pitched, terrified scream that froze my blood. The scream tore through the air like glass shattering, sharp and full of terror. The officers bolted toward the back of the house, their heavy boots pounding against the wooden floor. My heart almost stopped. I knew that voice. I would know it anywhere. "Emily," I gasped, stumbling forward before Martin yanked my arm roughly, pulling me back. "Stay where you are," he hissed under his breath. "Don't think you're getting out of this so easy." I struggled, my nails digging into his skin, but his grip was iron. John, sitting in his wheelchair, smirked despite the tension. So the little brat couldn't keep her nose out of my business after all. Those words confirmed it. Emily had been the one who called the police. She had risked everything for me. And now she was in danger because of it. From the hallway, we heard the officers shouting, "Hands up! Show me your hands." Then came Emily's voice, shaking and small. Please don't hurt me. I was just trying to help her." My knees buckled with relief. She was alive. But my relief didn't last long. Another voice, low, angry, and unfamiliar, growled from the shadows. "Nobody's leaving this house." The sound of a gun cocking filled the silence. The officers barked commands, their voices loud and tense. "Drop it. Drop the weapon now." My entire body went cold. Another man? Who was he? I hadn't even known anyone else was in the house. John's smirk grew wider, like he had been waiting for this very moment. "You didn't think I'd trust the two of us alone with her, did you?" he said, his voice dripping with cruelty. "I always have a backup plan." My stomach twisted. He had brought someone else. Someone dangerous to make sure I had no way out. Then bang. A single gunshot ripped through the house. The walls shook, Emily screamed again, and one of the officers shouted in pain. I covered my mouth to keep from screaming, my entire body trembling like a leaf in the wind. Martin still had me pinned, and John laughed, an ugly, bitter laugh that made my blood run cold. The taller officer's voice thundered from the hallway, commanding strong. "Officer down. We need backup immediately." Sirens wailed faintly in the distance, growing louder, but I knew one thing for sure. By the time backup arrived, everything could already be over. And in that terrifying moment, Martin leaned close to my ear and whispered, "If you don't do exactly as we say, the girl dies next." The sound of the gunshot still echoed in my ears, making it hard to breathe. My whole body shook as though my bones had turned to glass. From the hallway, I heard heavy groans, the wounded officer. My chest tightened. Emily was crying out, "Please don't hurt me. Please." Her voice cracked like she was on the edge of breaking. I tried to push Martin away, but his grip was stronger. His breath was hot against my ear as he hissed, "Don't you dare move. One wrong word, and your precious girl will be next." John leaned forward in his wheelchair, his face twisted with triumph. "This is the end of your little act, Susan. No more lies. No more pity. Tonight you'll learn to obey." I felt sick. All these years of sacrifice, of staying by his side through his accident, his pain, his bitterness, only to realize that the man I married had died long ago. What sat before me now was a stranger with no heart. The taller officer's voice boomed again from the hallway, filled with authority despite the chaos. "Drop the weapon now, or I swear I'll shoot." But the mysterious man, John's so-called backup, barked back, "Take another step and the girl dies." Emily whimpered, and my heart ripped apart. My mind screamed, "I can't lose her. I can't let this end here." I whispered a silent prayer, clutching the hem of my dress to steady my hands. Somewhere deep inside me a fire flickered, small but growing. For the first time in years I felt a surge of courage. "Martin," I said softly, turning my head so only he could hear. "If you let him do this, you'll go down with him. Think about it. You'll be in prison for the rest of your life. Do you really want that?" He stiffened but didn't answer. I pressed on, my voice trembling but firm. You have a choice. Let me go. Help me save her. And maybe, just maybe, the law will show you mercy. For a split second his grip loosened. Just a fraction. But it was enough for me to know I was getting through to him. Then crash. The taller officer tackled the armed man in the hallway, and the sound of their struggle thundered through the house. The gun clattered to the floor, sliding across the wooden boards. Emily, run! The officer shouted. I turned my head just in time to see her small figure dash toward the living room, her hair flying behind her. Relief and fear flooded me all at once. But before I could even move to reach her, John screamed, his voice like a demon's roar. Grab her! Martin shoved me aside and lunged after Emily. I fell hard to the floor, pain shooting up my arm, but I didn't care. All I saw was my daughter sprinting for her life, and Martin's hand stretching out to catch her. The world slowed down around me. My breath caught in my throat. My heart pounded so loudly I could barely hear anything else. And then, just as Emily's fingers touched the doorknob, Martin's hand clamped down on her shoulder. Emily's scream pierced the room the moment Martin's hand clamped onto her shoulder. She kicked and twisted, but he dragged her back with terrifying strength. Let me go, she cried, tears streaming down her cheeks. Quiet, Martin snarled, yanking her arm so hard I thought it might snap. I scrambled to my feet, my knees wobbling. Martin, please. She's just a child. Don't do this. My voice cracked with desperation. But John, still in his wheelchair, laughed darkly. Oh, Susan, you never understood. Children are tools. Just like you were. And Martin here is loyal enough to finish what I started. Loyal. I spat, my fear boiling into anger. You've poisoned his mind. You've twisted everything good about him into something ugly. John's smirk grew wider. Ugly? No. Necessary. He knows where true power lies. Don't you, Martin? Martin froze for half a second, Emily still squirming under his grip. His eyes darted between John and me. I saw it then, conflict. For the first time, doubt flickered in his expression. Martin, I whispered, my voice softer now, trembling but steady enough to slip into his ears. This isn't who you are. You don't want to hurt her. You don't want blood on your hands. His grip loosened just slightly, but John slammed his fist against the armrest of his chair. Don't listen to her. She's manipulating you. You swore to me, Martin. Don't betray me now. The taller officer in the hallway shouted again, his voice commanding. Drop her. Drop her now. But before Martin could make a choice, Emily acted. With one sharp stomp, she slammed her heel down on his foot. He howled in pain, bending forward instinctively. Emily seized the chance, biting his hand so hard he yelped and let go. Run, baby, run. I screamed. She bolted, racing past me. But John wasn't about to let her escape. His face twisted with rage as he reached into his lap and pulled out a small pistol I hadn't seen before. Time stopped. I saw his finger curl around the trigger. I saw his eyes blaze with hatred. He aimed not at me but at Emily. No. I shrieked. My legs moved before my mind could. I threw myself forward, slamming into John's wheelchair just as the gun went off. Bang! The shot ripped through the air, deafening. Sparks flew as the bullet struck the wall. Emily froze in the doorway, eyes wide with terror. John roared in frustration, his face red with fury. You dare touch me? He spat. I'll end you, Susan. Tonight you die. The taller officer shouted again. Drop the gun now. But John only tightened his grip on the pistol, his eyes burning into mine. And in that moment I realized something chilling. He wasn't bluffing anymore. He was ready to kill me. John's hand trembled on the pistol, but his eyes, cold, sharp, and merciless, never left mine. I could hear Emily sobbing behind me, frozen in the doorway, too afraid to move. Sit down, Susan, John growled, or I'll make sure she never sees another sunrise. The taller officer crept further into the house, his gun raised and steady. Put the weapon down, sir. This doesn't have to end like this. But John sneered. You think you're in charge here? No. I decide who lives. I decide who dies. The officer shifted slightly, his gaze flicking to me. His lips formed the words silently, distract him. My heart thundered. My palms grew slick. If I made one wrong move, John would fire. But if I did nothing, Emily and I might never make it out alive. I took a slow step forward, my voice soft and trembling. John, listen to me. We've been through so much. I was there when the accident happened. I fed you when you couldn't feed yourself. I stayed even when you turned cold. Even when you pushed me away. Don't throw everything away now. Lies. John snapped, his face twisting. You stayed because you're weak. Because you had no one else to run to. Don't try to dress it up as love. My throat tightened. For years, I had tried to make him believe I stayed out of love, not pity. But deep down, maybe he had always believed the opposite. Emily whispered shakily from behind me. Mom, don't let him hurt us. That broke something inside me. I straightened my back, my fear turning into fire. No, John. You're wrong. I stayed because I believed in the man I married. But the man I see now, my voice cracked, but I forced the words out, is a monster I don't recognize. John's face flushed with rage. His hand tightened around the trigger. For a breathless second, I thought it was the end. Then, suddenly, Martin stepped between us. His body trembled, his face pale, but his arms were outstretched. Stop this, John. Please. You don't need to do this. Move, John snarled. No, Martin said firmly, though his voice shook. I've done enough wrong for you. I won't let you make me destroy them too. My breath caught. Was he protecting us? John's eyes blazed with betrayal. You ungrateful fool. After everything I gave you. You gave me nothing, Martin said, tears in his eyes. You took everything from me. My life. My soul. My peace. And now, I'm taking it back. For a moment, silence fell. Even the officer hesitated, watching this unexpected turn. But John was not a man to be defied. With a snarl, he lifted the gun higher, his aim now set on Martin's chest. Then you die first. The world froze as his fingers squeezed the trigger. Bang. The gun went off. And Martin staggered back, clutching his chest as blood began to bloom across his shirt. Martin's body hit the floor with a sickening thud. His hand pressed against his chest, blood spilling between his fingers. Emily screamed, her small voice slicing through the room like broken glass. Martin, I cried, falling to my knees beside him. His eyes fluttered open, weak but determined. Don't let him win, he whispered, his breath shallow. Behind me, John laughed, a cold, rattling laugh that made my stomach twist. He raised the pistol again, his eyes locked on me now. 2 down. 1 to go. The taller officer shouted, drop it now. His voice thundered with authority. But John's finger hovered near the trigger, steady and merciless. His lips curled. If I can't control her, no one will. Something inside me snapped. I couldn't let him destroy us. Not Emily, not even myself. I lunged forward, grabbing at the armrest of his wheelchair, and shoving with every ounce of strength I had left. The chair jolted violently, spinning sideways. John cursed, his shot going wide. Bang. The bullet whizzed past my ear, shattering a picture frame on the wall. Glass rained down around us. Emily bolted to the officer, who quickly pulled her behind him for safety. He barked into his radio, shots fired. Send backup now. But John wasn't done. He struggled to steady his chair, lifting the gun again. His face was twisted with rage, veins standing out on his neck. This ends when I say it ends, he roared. And then something unexpected happened. Martin, bleeding and barely conscious, reached out with trembling fingers. His hand found John's wheel. And with one last surge of strength, he yanked it hard. The wheelchair lurched violently to the side. John lost his balance, his gun hand flailing. The pistol slipped from his grasp, skidding across the floor toward me. For a second, everything slowed. The weapon lay inches from my hand. John's furious eyes burned into mine. The officer raised his gun, shouting again. Emily sobbed behind him, begging me to move. And I realized the choice was mine. Do I pick up the gun? Do I end this once and for all? Or do I step back, trusting the law to handle the man who had tried to destroy my life? My hand trembled as it hovered above the cold steel of the pistol. Behind me, John growled. Go on, Susan. Be the killer I always knew you could be. The room seemed to close in, every breath heavy, every heartbeat louder than thunder. I knew whatever decision I made in that moment would change everything forever. My hand hovered over the gun, my fingers trembling as sweat dripped down my face. I could hear Emily sobbing. "Mom, don't. Please don't." John's cold voice cut through her cries. "Pick it up, Susan. Do it. You've always wanted me gone. Now's your chance. Kill me." I froze. He wanted this. He wanted me to become like him, bitter, cruel, broken. If I pulled that trigger, I wouldn't just kill John. I would kill the last piece of myself I had been fighting so hard to protect. The officer's voice barked, firm and commanding. "Ma'am, step away from the weapon. We'll handle this." But John sneered, his face twisted with rage. "You think they'll protect you? The moment I'm gone, they'll throw you aside like garbage. Without me, you're nothing." His words stabbed at me, but something stronger rose inside. Something he couldn't touch anymore. I looked at him square in the eyes, my hand still trembling above the gun, and said, "You're wrong, John. Without you, I am free." Instead of grabbing the weapon, I shoved it further away with my foot. The officer rushed forward, kicking it out of reach before cuffing John's wrists with a swift, practiced motion. "No," John roared, thrashing violently in his chair. His face turned red with fury, veins bulging as spit flew from his mouth. "This isn't over, Susan. You hear me? You'll never be free of me." Emily clung to me, her tiny hands gripping my waist as though I might vanish. "Mom, you did the right thing," she whispered through tears. But my eyes turned to Martin. He lay on the floor, blood pooling beneath him. His chest rose and fell shallowly, his lips pale. I dropped to my knees, grabbing his hand. "Martin, stay with me. Please don't leave me now." His eyes flickered open, glassy and weak. I told you," he gasped. "Don't let him win." The officer shouted into his radio. "We need an ambulance now. Male subject with a gunshot wound, critical condition." I pressed my hands over Martin's wound, trying to stop the bleeding. "Don't talk, just breathe. Help is coming." Martin's eyes found mine, and for a brief second, I saw the boy I once knew. The friend who had laughed with me, shared secrets, dreamed with me before John had twisted him into something else. Tears filled my eyes. "Hold on, Martin. Don't let him take you from me too." His lips moved faintly. I leaned closer, straining to hear. "I'm sorry." And then his head tilted back, his hand slipping from mine. "No," I screamed, shaking him as Emily cried harder behind me. The paramedics rushed in at that exact moment, kneeling beside Martin, checking his pulse, shouting medical terms I barely understood. They lifted him onto a stretcher, their hands working frantically to save him. I stood frozen, my chest aching, my hands sticky with his blood. John was still roaring behind me, the officer struggling to control his thrashing body. But I didn't hear him anymore. My world had narrowed to one single question. Would Martin live? Or had John stolen another piece of my life forever? The sirens wailed as the paramedics rushed Martin out on the stretcher. Emily and I stumbled after them, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might tear through my chest. My hands were still smeared with his blood, sticky and warm, and I couldn't stop shaking. "Please," I whispered to one of the medics, my voice breaking. "Please save him. He doesn't deserve to die like this." The medic gave me a brief glance, his eyes serious. "We'll do everything we can, ma'am. But you need to stay calm for your daughter." I looked down at Emily. Her little face was blotched red from crying, her eyes swollen. She clung to me like I was her only anchor. "Mommy, is Martin going to die?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. I bent down, hugging her tight. "No, baby. He's going to fight. He has to." Behind us, I could still hear John's voice. He was being dragged out by two officers, handcuffed and furious. His wheelchair scraped the ground as he twisted violently against their grip. "You think this is over, Susan?" he bellowed, his voice echoing through the night. "It's only just begun. You'll see. You'll all see." The taller officer pushed him firmly into the back of a police van, slamming the doors shut. For the first time in years there was silence. No more commands, no more threats, no more cruel words from John. But that silence was heavy, filled with fear of what might come next. The ambulance sped off with Martin, and the paramedic waved me toward a second vehicle. "Ma'am, we'll take you and your daughter to the hospital. You need to be checked too." I nodded numbly, my body moving on autopilot. Emily and I climbed into the back, the doors shutting behind us with a hollow thud. As the sirens blared, I held Emily's trembling hands in mine. Her head leaned against my arm, her breathing shaky but slowing. But my own mind wouldn't rest. I thought about John's words, his promise that it wasn't over. I thought about Martin's apology, his weak voice telling me he was sorry. Sorry for what? Sorry for leaving? Sorry for not protecting me sooner? Or sorry for the years of silence when John was breaking me piece by piece? The ambulance hit a bump, jarring me back to reality. Emily stirred and whispered, "Mommy, I'm scared." I kissed her forehead, though my lips trembled. "Me too, sweetheart. But we're together. That's what matters." At the hospital, everything blurred into flashing lights, rushing nurses, and echoing voices. They wheeled Martin away toward the emergency ward while Emily and I were led to a waiting room. I sat there numb, watching the clock tick. Every second felt like a year. Then, the officer who had shouted at John earlier entered the room. His uniform was smeared with dirt, his face stern but kind. He took a seat across from me. "Mrs. Harris," he began, his tone low. "Your husband has been taken into custody. He'll be charged with multiple crimes, including attempted murder. For now, you and your daughter are safe." Safe. The word echoed in my mind. But was it true? "Officer," I whispered, gripping Emily's hand tighter. "Men like John, they don't stop. Even behind bars, they find ways. I don't know if we'll ever truly be free of him." The officer leaned forward, his eyes locking onto mine. "Then we'll make sure you're protected. But right now the most important thing is whether your friend survives." As if on cue, the doors to the ER swung open. A doctor stepped out, his scrub stained, his mask hanging from one ear. His expression was unreadable. I shot to my feet, my heart lodged in my throat. "Doctor, how is he? Please tell me Martin is alive." The doctor removed his gloves slowly, then looked at me with eyes that made my stomach twist. "I'm afraid," he began. "I'm afraid." The doctor's voice cracked through the air, heavy as a hammer against my chest. My knees wobbled, and I gripped Emily's hand so tight she whimpered. The doctor paused, pulling down his mask fully. "We almost lost him. The knife cut dangerously close to his lung. But he's alive. He's in critical condition, and the next 24 hours will decide everything." For a moment, my world stopped. I could finally breathe again, but it was shaky, like air through broken glass. "Alive," I whispered, tears pouring freely now. I covered my face, sobbing into my hands. Emily climbed into my lap and hugged me tight, her tiny arms wrapped around my neck. "See, Mommy? I told you Martin wouldn't leave us," she said, her childlike faith stronger than anything I could muster in that moment. The doctor continued, "He's being stabilized, but he'll need surgery first thing in the morning. You can see him briefly, but only one at a time. He's weak, too weak to speak for long." I nodded, wiping my tears with trembling fingers. The officer from earlier stepped forward. "Mrs. Harris, I'll stay with your daughter while you see him. Go. He may need your strength right now." I hesitated, looking down at Emily. She nodded bravely, though her lip quivered. "Go, Mommy. Tell him I said he has to get better." With that, I followed the doctor down the corridor. The sterile smell of antiseptic grew stronger, and every beep of a machine made my heart race faster. Finally, we reached his room. Martin lay on the bed, pale as a ghost. Tubes and wires covered his body, machines humming softly around him. His chest rose and fell slowly, like every breath was a battle. "Martin," I whispered, stepping closer. My hand reached out, trembling, and I brushed his fingers. They twitched weakly, curling around mine. His eyes fluttered open, just barely. "Susan." His voice was dry, hoarse, barely there. "I'm sorry." "No, don't you dare waste your strength on that," I said quickly, my tears dropping onto the sheets. "You've already done enough. You saved me. You saved Emily." His lips trembled, his chest rising shakily. "I should have been there sooner. I let him hurt you. Shua." I pressed his hand to my cheek. "You don't owe me an apology. You owe yourself another chance. So fight, Martin. Please. Fight for me. Fight for Emily. Don't you leave us now. His eyes glistened with tears, and for the first time, I saw the regret buried deep inside him. He opened his mouth again, whispering something that made my whole body freeze. I know what John is planning. He told me before. His eyelids drooped. He won't stop. Not even in prison. He has someone on the outside. My stomach dropped. What? Martin. Who? Who's helping him? But his strength gave out. His hand went limp in mine, his eyes closing as the monitor beeped steadily. Martin. I cried, shaking him gently. The doctor rushed in, guiding me away. He's unconscious but still stable. Let him rest. I stumbled back, my mind spinning. Someone on the outside. Someone working with John. Even with him locked away, we weren't safe. When I returned to Emily, she jumped up from her chair. Mommy, how's Martin? I knelt, hugging her tightly. He's alive, sweetheart. But we have to be brave. Things aren't over yet. The officer's phone buzzed suddenly. He frowned, stepping aside to answer. His face grew darker with every word. When he hung up, he turned to me with urgency in his eyes. Mrs. Harris, I don't want to scare you, but there's been a development. John's lawyer just posted bail. He could be released within hours. The room spun. My heart stopped. Emily gasped, clutching my arm. Released? Already? It felt like the walls were closing in. And then, as if fate wanted to test me further, my phone buzzed in my pocket. A text message. From an unknown number. You thought you could run, Susan? You'll never escape me. I'll finish what the phone almost slipped from my hand as I read the message again. My heart pounded so loud I thought Emily could hear it. My fingers trembled as if the words had burned themselves into my skin. You thought you could run, Susan? You'll never escape me. I'll finish what I started. I looked at Emily. Her eyes, wide with fear, searched my face for answers. I quickly put the phone behind my back, forcing a smile I didn't feel. It's nothing, sweetheart. Just nothing. But she wasn't fooled. Mommy, is it him? Before I could answer, the officer standing nearby noticed my pale face. Mrs. Harris, what happened? I handed him the phone with shaking hands. His eyes narrowed as he read the message. This can't be possible. He's still in custody. He has someone working for him. I whispered, my voice cracking. Martin tried to warn me before he lost consciousness. He said John wouldn't stop. He said someone was helping him. The officer cursed under his breath and dialed quickly on his radio. We need to tighten security around the Harris family right now and put a trace on this number. Emily clung to my waist, her small body trembling. I rubbed her back, whispering, It's okay, baby. Mommy won't let anything happen to you. But inside, I wasn't sure I could keep that promise. Minutes later, a detective in a dark suit arrived. His presence was sharp, his eyes cold but focused. I'm Detective Carter. I'll be taking over this case from here. Mrs. Harris, we need to talk. We stepped into a quiet hallway while another officer distracted Emily with juice and crayons. Tell me everything your husband said, Carter demanded. He said John wouldn't stop, even in prison. He said John has someone on the outside helping him. Then he passed out. Carter tapped his pen against his notepad. That explains a lot. John's lawyer isn't just a lawyer. He's a fixer. Rumors are, he has ties to dangerous people who owe him favors. It's possible someone has been ordered to finish John's dirty work if he can't. A chill crawled up my spine. So we're not safe even if John stays locked up? That's exactly right, Carter said grimly. Which is why we're moving you and your daughter into protective custody. Tonight. I wanted to argue to stay close to Martin, but Carter read my thoughts instantly. Martin will remain under guard here at the hospital. 2 officers will be posted at his door around the clock. You'll be safer if you leave. Tears stung my eyes as I thought about leaving him when he was at his weakest. But I also thought of Emily. Her safety came first.
Fine, he whispered.
But where will we go? Carter gave a thin smile. Someplace John will never expect. Hours later, under the cover of darkness, Emily and I were whisked away in an unmarked car. The ride felt endless, the headlights of cars behind us making me jump every time. Emily eventually fell asleep against my arm, but my eyes never closed. My phone buzzed again in my pocket, but this time it was Carter's order. Do not look at it. Do not respond. Finally, we arrived at a safe house on the outskirts of town, a small cabin surrounded by trees. Officers were stationed around the property. Carter assured me we'd be secure. For the first time in days, I allowed myself to exhale. Emily snuggled into bed whispering, "It feels safe here, Mommy." I kissed her forehead whispering back, "Sleep, baby. Mommy's right here." But just as I began to settle, a faint tap-tap-tap came against the bedroom window. I froze. My heart leapt into my throat. Slowly, I turned toward the sound. And there in the shadows a figure stood. A man. Watching us through the glass. I started. The figure outside the window didn't move. He just stood there, his face hidden by the darkness, the glow of a cigarette briefly lighting up his sharp jawline. My breath caught in my throat, and every nerve in my body screamed to run. I pulled Emily closer, pressing a finger to my lips so she wouldn't make a sound. Her little eyes widened, and I could feel her tiny body trembling against me. The tap-tap-tap came again, harder this time, like a warning. I slowly reached for the phone on the nightstand, my hands shaking. I dialed Detective Carter's emergency number with fumbling fingers. Before the first ring even finished, a loud knock came from the front door of the safe house. "Open up," a man's voice shouted. "Police." I froze. My instincts screamed trap. Carter had told me earlier, no one would ever come to the safe house unannounced. The figure at the window flicked his cigarette to the ground and stepped closer, pressing his face against the glass. For the first time I saw his eyes. Cold, empty, familiar. It wasn't John. But it was someone who carried the same cruel fire in his gaze. Emily whimpered softly. I hugged her tighter, whispering, "Shoo, baby, don't make a sound." Then the knocking at the front door grew louder, more violent. "Open up right now, or we'll break this door down." I didn't know what to do. Run out the back and risk the man at the window? Or stay inside and let whoever was at the door force their way in? Just then, I heard Carter's voice on the other end of the phone, urgent and sharp. "Susan, don't open the door. Do not move. My team is almost there. Stall if you can." I was about to whisper back when the front door slammed open with a deafening crash. Heavy boots pounded inside the cabin. The man at the window vanished into the darkness, leaving me with a new terror. Whoever had just broken in. Emily clung to my neck, her tiny voice barely audible. "Mommy, are they here to take us?" The bedroom door creaked open, and standing there in the dim light was a man I recognized. Not John, but his best friend. The same friend John had once tried to force me to sleep with. His twisted smile sent ice through my veins. "Thank you for staying with me till the very end of this painful but powerful story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the notification button so you don't miss more stories like this. And tell me, which part of the country are you watching from? I love knowing where my family of listeners is joining in from."